Namaste and welcome to the UPSC News Analysis for the 8th of May, 2025. In this deep dive, we're breaking down the day's most crucial current affairs. We'll explain the foundational concepts you need to grasp and really focus on the issues that matter for your UPSC mains exam. We've gone through reports from The Hindu, other key sources to bring you this detailed breakdown. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, it's quite a mix today, isn't it? A lot of interconnected things. We're looking at global food markets, India's critical mineral security, then there's the whole energy situation in Europe, and even climate change impacting our gut health. Surprising, that one. Lots to unpack.
Definitely. Let's start with something a bit unexpected, maybe. Amidst all the inflation chatter, global rice prices are actually quite flat. Now, for us in India, rice is huge. It's a staple, obviously, and India is a massive player globally, over 40% of exports, right?
Absolutely. Global rice security really impacts stability everywhere. And what's key here is India's own policies, particularly the minimum support price, MSP. It's such an important mechanism, to protect farmers' livelihoods,
Yeah.
ensures that minimum price. For this cycle, the MSP is around 2,230 per quintal for common paddy, and maybe 2,250 for the grade A stuff.
And it looks like our farmers had a good run. Projections are showing record exports, maybe 24 million tons, largely thanks to a good monsoon, which is interesting because some other countries are actually holding back on exports.
Yeah, and that creates an interesting dynamic, a challenge, really. Strong exports,
Yeah.
great for forex reserves. But India has to carefully balance that, with keeping enough buffer stock. That's managed by the XCI.
The Food Corporation of India, right, under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution.
Exactly. And then there's ensuring our own food security under the National Food Security Act, the NFSA 2013. Yeah. It's a delicate act, no doubt.
It really is. And here's where it gets tricky, isn't it? A bumper crop sounds great, but storage, logistics, that's pressure. Plus, being so reliant on the monsoon, that makes us vulnerable. What are the key things UPSC aspirants should be thinking about here?
Well, if you connect the dots, you see the economic side, like the forex inflow, social impacts, food affordability for everyone, and environmental ones too, like groundwater depletion, where paddy has grown heavily. It raises that big question. How do we move forward sustainably? These flat prices, despite inflation fears, they sort of hide this vulnerability. India's export strength, it really hangs on the monsoon. And with climate change, that's becoming less reliable, isn't it? So diversification isn't just nice to have, it's crucial.
So what kind of policy moves are needed then?
Well, the way forward probably involves a few things. A well-thought-out export strategy, definitely. Encouraging farmers to diversify maybe towards millets, pulses. Smarter procurement planning, too. Promoting water-saving irrigation, like micro-irrigation. And staying active in global trade talks, WTO and all that. And we shouldn't forget, Thailand, Vietnam, Pakistan, they're big players, too. Their policies matter for global prices.
Okay, let's shift gears completely now. Critical minerals. This is vital for India's tech future. India and the U.S. just signed an MOU on this. Now, for all of you preparing, it's essential to get what these are. Think of them as the building blocks for modern tech. EVs, solar panels, semiconductors, lithium, cobalt, nickel, those rare earth elements everyone talks about. Key examples.
Yeah, their strategic importance is just massive. Clean energy, defense, electronics, you name it. And what's really significant for India is our current dependence on imports. That creates huge supply chain risks. China's dominance in processing, especially rare earth, they control maybe 60, even 80% globally. That's a major concern. This India-U.S. pact, it's a step, but it highlights a dilemma, doesn't it? We need these resources, but we don't want to just swap dependence on China for dependence elsewhere.
Exactly. And this agreement, it feeds directly into Atmanirbharat, self-reliance. Plus our push for EVs with the FAME scheme, battery storage initiatives, defense needs, it's all connected. India's battery demand is projected to skyrocket, right?
Yeah.
Like 100-fold increase by 2030. Huge.
So this MOU, it's focused on shoring up those supply chains, maybe joint exploration ventures in places like Africa, South America, and sharing technology. This really aligns with several key government initiatives already underway.
Like which ones specifically?
Well, you've got Kebel Kanaj Bidesh India Ltd. That's the joint venture.
Yes. NLCO, HCL, MECL. The PSU is focused on getting mineral assets overseas.
Right. Then there's the official critical minerals list, 30 of them identified in 2023 by the Ministry of Mines, and the partnership with Australia from 2022, focusing on lithium, cobalt, rare earths. Plus, don't forget the PLI scheme for ACC batteries, those advanced ones for EVs, and the Deep Ocean Mission, looking for seabed minerals like polymetallic nodules, cobalt, nickel down there.
So, okay, sounds promising, but what are the potential roadblocks, the challenges we might face?
Well, for your mains prep, think about continued import reliance, especially on China. The fact that we haven't found huge domestic reserves yet, anyway. The environmental risks of mining both on land and potentially deep-sea mining, that's controversial. And just the geopolitics of securing resources from other countries, it's complex.
But the flip side, the potential benefits, they're pretty significant, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Economically, it's a massive boost for Make in India, for the EV sector. Strategically, it gives India more leverage, more bargaining power in the clean energy transition. Diplomatically, it strengthens ties with the U.S., aligns with the QAD's mineral strategy, India, U.S., Japan, Australia. And environmentally, the focus has to be on making sure any extraction is sustainable, responsible.
And looking ahead, what's the path forward?
It involves ramping up our own domestic exploration efforts. Definitely need that. Securing those long-term foreign supply contracts. Building our own processing capacity, especially for rare earth. That's critical. More R&D into substitutes, into better recycling tech, and maybe even building strategic reserves like we do for oil.
Okay. Now let's pivot to Europe and their energy situation. It's ongoing, isn't it? We've all heard about them trying to cut dependence on Russian gas, especially after the Ukraine conflict. LNG, liquefied natural gas, became the big alternative, particularly for countries without direct pipelines. Before 2022, Russia supplied, around 40% of EU gas, and the Repower EU plan was launched to end that reliance.
Yes, but the surprising thing is, despite those big plans, major players like France, Belgium, Spain, they're still importing quite a bit of Russian LNG. In fact, overall, EU purchases of Russian LNG actually went up by about 12%. And this LNG is even flowing through pipelines like Turkstream, despite sanctions being in place.
That does seem contradictory. What's really going on there?
It just highlights those persistent energy security worries, doesn't it? The EU's Repower EU plan, aiming for 2027, and the bigger European Green Deal, targeting carbon neutrality by 2050. They are ambitious. India, meanwhile, has its own partnerships, like the India-EU Clean Energy Partnership, hydrogen, solar, smart grids, and our own LTLEDS strategy presented at COP27. Plus, we maintain our strategic oil reserves, always trying to diversify imports.
So where's the disconnect in Europe's strategy?
The issues for your mains to focus on here are these geopolitical contradictions. The gap between green goals and immediate energy needs. Seems like there might be loopholes in the sanctions, or maybe exemptions, and there's still this heavy reliance on fossil fuels, plus a real risk of energy poverty rising in Europe if affordable alternatives aren't there.
And what are the ripple effects globally from this?
Globally, it adds to price volatility in gas markets. For India, well, it might open doors for better LNG deals with the U.S., Qatar, Australia maybe. Although, interestingly, Russia is also an LNG supplier to India. In climate diplomacy, it kind of puts pressure on the global south to speed up their transition, while some developed nations seem to be struggling with their own path.
So what's the way forward for the EU, and how does India navigate this?
For the EU, seems like they need more transparency in monitoring imports. Stricter enforcement of sanctions, perhaps? A balanced transition is key, acknowledging some fossil fuel needs short-term, but really pushing renewables and green hydrogen. More global coordination is vital. G20, IEA, to tackle this uneven progress. India can leverage its position through partnerships, like with the EU, and really promote our own green hydrogen mission.
Right. Now let's talk quality control. Specifically, the U.S. FDA, Food and Drug Administration, they've announced this new policy, unannounced global inspections of manufacturing plants. For India, this is huge. Our pharma industry is massive, third largest by volume, supplying something like 40% of U.S. generics, over 650 plants registered with the FDA.
Absolutely. And sticking to GMP good manufacturing practices is non-negotiable. Getting a warning letter, or worse, an import alert from the FDA, that's serious. Hits the bottom line, damages reputation hugely. And this new policy, it comes amid growing global concerns about drug quality, even things like baby food safety.
So what's the potential fallout for India's pharma and food exports?
Well, more scrutiny could mean fewer exports, potentially, maybe less investment coming in. Of course, India has its own systems. Pharma Vision 2020 aiming for global leadership, PLI schemes for APIs and medical devices, the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, IPC, and CDSCO, our main regulator, aligning with WHO GMP standards.
What are the biggest hurdles Indian manufacturers might face with these surprise checks?
Okay, from a UPSC angle, the main challenges are potential compliance gaps, especially for smaller companies, maybe they struggle more. The reputational risk, one bad apple affecting the whole basket,
Yeah.
Maybe some regulatory overlap or friction between FDA rules and CDSCO rules.
Yeah.
And our significant reliance on pharma exports for foreign exchange. That makes us sensitive to this.
But isn't there an upside too, an opportunity for improvement?
Oh, definitely. Short term, maybe some pain, lower exports, higher compliance costs. But long term, it can drive real improvements in quality and safety. That's good for everyone. In terms of health diplomacy, it affects our pharmacy of the world image, which was so prominent during COVID. And it pushes us to strengthen our own regulatory systems, make medicine safer here in India too.
So what steps should India take in response?
The way forward. Strengthening CDSKO is key, making sure our inspections are world-class, providing support, capacity building for SMEs, small and medium enterprises, to meet these tougher standards. Maybe fostering mentorship between big pharma companies and smaller ones. Public-private collaboration, more dialogue with the U.S., perhaps a dedicated regulatory forum, and using tech AI blockchain for better supply chain transparency, tracking batches.
Okay, let's shift to something definitely forward-looking. Rootomatic. It's a Bengaluru startup, AI-driven mobility solutions. They just bagged $40 million in funding. Their main thing is corporate employee transport, but they're big on EVs and using AI for route planning, fleet management. Very relevant for our cities.
Absolutely highlights the big urban challenges, doesn't it? Congestion, emissions, we all know them. And Rootomatic's plan with this cash: electrify 30% of their fleet, expand to 5 more cities, integrate more AI that's significant. It fits right into India's bigger goals. EV transition, smart urban transport.
And the government's pushing this too, right?
Precisely. You've got FAME 2, the big EV subsidy scheme that was 10,000 crore budget, 2019-24, the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan, the Smart Cities Mission emphasizing sustainable transport, PLI schemes for batteries and EV parts, various urban transport policies at different levels. It's all pointing in that direction.
Well, but it's not all smooth sailing. What obstacles are there for companies like Rootomatic and India's EV dream?
Key challenges for mains prep. The infrastructure gap, not enough charging stations, grid integration issues, that's a big one. The upfront cost of EVs is still pretty high for many. Regulatory fragmentation, different states having slightly different rules can be confusing. And data privacy concerns with all this AI tracking and management, that needs careful handling.
But the potential upsides are clear, yeah.
Well, yeah. Economically, innovation, green jobs, startup growth. Environmentally, cutting pollution, lowering carbon emissions from transport. Crucial. Socially, potentially safer, more reliable commutes, maybe even cheaper eventually. And technologically, it builds our AI ecosystem, pushes smart mobility forward.
So what's needed to really kickstart this, to accelerate progress?
It needs a coordinated push. Massively expanding charging infrastructure, public-private partnerships are key there. Clear rules and ethics around AI and transport. Better integrated urban planning, linking EVs with metro, buses, shared mobility, focusing on battery recycling, more R&D to cut costs and improve batteries, and standardizing EV policies across states for a smoother national market. Remember that FAME 2 target. 30% EVs by 2030. Ambitious. And Rootomatic's AI for predictive routing, EV tracking, that's exactly the kind of smart mobility the Smart Cities mission envisions.
Okay, back to the EU for a moment. Their climate plans again. They have these big targets, climate neutral by 2050 under the Green Deal, 55% emission cuts by 2030. Energy transition is all about moving away from fossil fuels, right?
Right. But the scrutiny is about potential loopholes. Are they really moving away fast enough? Reports suggest some EU states are still signing short-term deals for coal, gas, using emergency clauses, even using subsidies to reopen gas power plants. And there's talk they might miss their own 2024 clean energy targets.
So a bit of a gap between talk and action, potentially.
Seems that way. Some analysts are calling it greenwashing, and that erodes trust in global climate talks. It also fuels that debate about climate justice, Developing countries often feel pressured while developed nations seem to lag sometimes.
How do India's commitments stack up in this context?
India has pretty significant commitments under the Paris Agreement, RINDCs. Reducing emissions intensity by 45%, getting 50% power capacity from non-fossil fuels by 2030, plus initiatives like the International Solar Alliance, ISA, the Green Hydrogen Mission. It's important context that India's per capita emissions are still much lower than many developed nations. Even if our total share is around 7% globally, our net zero target is 2070. And then there's the EU's CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, that could hit Indian exports like steel, cement.
So what are the main issues arising from the EU situation for us to consider?
For mains, lack of accountability if developed countries miss targets. That whole climate hypocrisy angle, the constant tension between energy affordability and cutting emissions, and the impact of things like CBAM on developing economies. That's a big one for India.
And the wider impacts globally?
Well, it could weaken the EU's climate leadership role. It strengthens India's case for CBDR, common but differentiated responsibilities, potentially delays global net zero goals, and creates trade friction because of carbon tariffs.
So what's needed for more genuine global climate action?
Much more transparency. Monitoring what countries actually do, not just what they pledge. Reaffirming that CBDR principle. Equity is key. Developed nations need to deliver on that $100 billion annual climate finance promise. Still waiting on that. India can leverage its position, build coalitions with other developing nations, promote things like the LIFE movement, and we need better sharing of green tech, especially with the Global South.
Okay, let's move to something really innovative. Agrivoltaics. This idea of using the same land for solar power and farming. Panels up high, crops underneath. Huge potential for India, right? Energy transition, land efficiency, farmer income, all roll into one.
Exactly. And there's growing global interest, especially where land is tight. Japan, Germany, India too. Pilot projects here in India, Punjab, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. They've shown good results. Crop yields often maintained, sometimes better. Plus, farmers get extra income from the electricity. It's really emerging as a key climate-smart agriculture strategy, boosting the green economy.
What's the government doing to push this?
The PM KUSUM scheme is a big one. Component C specifically supports solarizing agricultural lands, solar pumps, grid-connected plants. The National Solar Mission is the broader umbrella. Some states are trying land lease models too. The ISA International Solar Alliance, headquartered in Gurugram, is promoting it actively in member countries. And there's a draft national policy on agrivoltaics proposed in 2023, trying to link the renewable energy and agriculture ministries better. Just to clarify, KUSUM component A is decentralized grid-connected plants, B is standalone solar pumps, C is solarizing existing grid pumps.
Sounds promising, but what are the hurdles to scaling this up across India?
Main challenges remains. The upfront cost is still high. Setting these systems up isn't cheap. Technical complexity balancing the light needs of crops versus the panels needs careful design. Lack of a clear, uniform central policy on things like land leases, tariffs, grid connection for these projects, it's still a bit patchy. And just general awareness among farmers, many might not know much about it yet.
But the potential wins seem pretty significant.
Oh, huge, economically. Big boost to farmer income. Environmentally. Cuts carbon footprint, preserves land. Socially. Empowers rural communities, provides clean energy access, enhances resilience. And for climate adaptation, the panels could even offer some protection to crops from harsh sun, reduce water evaporation.
So what's the path forward to really get agrivoltaics moving at scale?
We need a clear, comprehensive central policy. That's number one. Better coordination between ministries and states. Financial support, targeted subsidies, easier credit access, maybe classify it under priority sector lending, green finance. Farmer training is crucial. Get FPOs, farmer-producer organizations involved to build local expertise. Simplify grid connection and net metering for farmers generating power. Make it easy for them. And more R&D on system design, panel height, spacing optimized for different crops and regions. Interesting fact, the basic idea actually goes back to German scientists in 1981.
Okay, now for something maybe less obvious, but potentially very impactful. Climate change and our gut microbiota. We know climate change hits health in many ways, but this link to the trillions of microbes in our gut, that's emerging. These microbes are vital for digestion, immunity, even mental health.
That's right. We usually think heat waves, diseases, but new evidence links environmental changes, heat, water quality changes, different food availability, air pollution to disrupting our gut microbes. This imbalance, called dysbiosis, can lead to serious issues. Malnutrition, higher risk of autoimmune problems, more infections, even cognitive issues.
And this is particularly relevant for India, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes. The risks get amplified here. High population density, existing sanitation challenges in places, our tropical climate. It all adds up. Research, like that Lancet review and studies from IPH Gandhinagar, highlights this connection. Vulnerable groups, kids, the elderly, poorer communities, they're likely most at risk.
What's the government doing on the broader health front that might touch upon this?
Well, several national initiatives have indirect links, even if not focused solely on the gut microbiome. The NAPCC's National Mission on Health looks at climate-sensitive diseases. Pushan Abhiyan, the nutrition mission, is increasingly acknowledging gut health's role. Swachh Bharat mission improving sanitation helps. Jal Jeevan mission ensuring safe water helps. All these contribute to a healthier gut environment.
What are the key challenges in tackling this sort of hidden health crisis?
For UPSC prep, it's not yet mainstream in public health policy. The gut health link isn't widely discussed. The specific vulnerability of children, the elderly, existing nutrition programs might not fully address their microbiome needs. Lack of an integrated policy framework that explicitly connects climate action and public health strategies on this front. And the exposures are often invisible: loss of food diversity, pesticides, subtle temperature changes affecting microbes.
And the potential long-term consequences if we don't tackle this.
We could see a rise in digestive disorders, metabolic diseases like diabetes, maybe even neurodevelopmental issues. Societally, lower productivity, impacts on child development, quality of life, economically. A bigger healthcare burden from these climate-linked chronic conditions. Scientifically, though, it opens doors for research, precision nutrition, microbiome therapies.
So what steps should we take? How do we move forward?
We need to start recognizing gut health as a key public health indicator, integrated into surveillance.
Yeah.
Foster more interdisciplinary work, environmental science, nutrition, epidemiology, feeding into policy. Educate health workers about these less obvious climate impacts. Invest more in microbiome research, specifically within the Indian context. And really strengthen those water-climate links in our national missions. Healthier environment, healthier gut. Oh, and just to clarify, microbiota is the community of bugs. Microbiome includes them plus their genes and environment. India's diversity makes us vulnerable to these climate health shocks, especially in coastal or tribal areas.
Right. Now, on a positive note, let's talk about the Hindus' Made of Chennai campaign. It won global recognition at the One IFRA World Media Awards 2025. Great to see initiatives celebrating urban identity and civic engagement getting noticed. One IFRA, for those wondering, is the World Association of News Publishers.
Yeah, these campaigns are so important. They help preserve a city's unique character, especially with rapid development. Made of Chennai really focused on local culture, the city's resilience, amplifying citizen voices. It got praised for its urban storytelling approach and how it boosted awareness of local governance and got young people involved.
And this kind of thing fits well with government initiatives too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The Smart Cities mission talks about culture-based renewal, citizen participation. The HRIA scheme focuses on heritage cities preserving their cultural fabric. AMRI mission pushes sustainable urban planning. And India has several UNESCO creative cities: Jaipur, Chennai, Varanasi, Hyderabad. Even Digital India supports local storytelling via digital platforms. HRIA cities include places like Amritsar, Warangal, Ajmer too.
What are the deeper challenges these campaigns often try to address in our cities?
Key issues for Maines. Urban homogenization: cities starting to look and feel the same, losing unique identities. Sometimes a lack of strong civic ownership among residents. Planning can feel very top-down, not always participatory enough. And language or digital divides can limit who gets to tell their story or who hears it.
But the potential positive impacts are quite significant.
Definitely. They can encourage more participatory governance, help preserve local culture, stop diverse voices being lost, spark innovation in media storytelling, and empower youth to connect with their cities past and present, get involved.
So how can we see more of these kinds of impactful initiatives?
Municipal authorities can institutionalize this. Maybe dedicated budgets under Smart Cities or HRDA, more support for digital platforms promoting local content, especially in regional languages. Maybe integrating urban civics, local history into school curricula, encouraging partnerships between local government and media, and replicating successful models like Made of Chennai, maybe a My Varanasi or Bengaluru stories. Smart cities focus areas like livability, culture, sustainability. Storytelling fits right in.
Okay, finally, let's address a concerning recent event, the aircraft crash in Punjab, near Akhlian Kalan village, close to Bathinda. Tragically, there was a fatality, several injuries. And this happened when airspace security was already heightened after the cross-border tensions with Pakistan. An investigation is ongoing into the aircraft's origin.
Yes, a very unfortunate incident. It really underscores how crucial effective airspace management is, and civil defense disaster preparedness, especially in border regions like Punjab. It has a long border with Pakistan, over 550 kilometers. Any aircraft incident there, accidental or otherwise, needs a very quick, coordinated response.
What systems are in place for such situations?
Well, there's the proposal for a unified Indian Air Defense Command. We have the Integrated Air Command and Control System, IACCS, that's the nationwide radar grid. SDRF and DMA are key for emergency response coordination. The Civil Defense Act 1968 provides the framework for training civilians, very relevant in border areas. Even the UDAN scheme, for regional connectivity, has air safety aspects in sensitive zones. And we need to remember both India and Pakistan use UAVs, UCAVs, that adds complexity to airspace monitoring near the border.
What specific challenges does this crash highlight regarding our readiness?
From a UPSC viewpoint, The vulnerability of civilians living near borders during high alerts. Potential gaps in early warning systems for civilians. Investigations after crashes can take time, which can be frustrating. And maybe challenges in smooth coordination between different agencies. Civil aviation, military, disaster management.
And the broader implications.
Yeah.
Security, diplomatic.
Security-wise, it raises questions about low-altitude air defense, surveillance in border areas. It tests our disaster management protocols, local response capabilities. And politically, diplomatically, such events can strain relations, especially if there's ambiguity about the aircraft's origin or intent.
So looking forward, what steps can be taken to mitigate these risks and improve response?
Upgrading low-level radar in border areas seems important. Deploying well-trained, rapid civil defense units specifically for airspace incidents in vulnerable districts. Maybe using AI for threat detection, analyzing aerial patterns. Strengthening local emergency medical services near defense installations and borders, and regular public awareness campaigns educating border residents on what to do. Worth remembering Civil Defense Day is March 6th, highlighting the importance of these measures.
Subscribe for daily updates and drop a comment to share your thoughts. Download the audio or transcript for revision. Jai Hind.